Genesis 26, an exegetical and biblical-theological commentary. Within the progressive unfolding of the divine promise plan, the narrative of Isaac serves as a critical structural hinge. It connects the foundational covenant made with Abraham to the establishment of the 12 tribes through Jacob. Throughout Genesis, the author seamlessly weaves the overarching promise of the coming seed of the woman into the patriarchal narratives, demonstrating a unified redemptive trajectory. Isaac embodies the continuation of this divine promise. He is the crucial link who proves that the covenant relies not on human fidelity, but entirely upon God's sovereign faithfulness. The events of Genesis 26 occur against the broader biblical worldview of a cosmic struggle where the promised seed repeatedly faces jeopardy through famine, foreign kings, and personal failures, only to be preserved by divine intervention. This chapter demonstrates that the unconditional promises of land, seed, and universal blessing endure transgenerationally. They maintain their concrete significance for ethnic Israel while advancing God's restorative program for the nations. The narrative opens with a localized crisis, a famine, that threatens the physical survival of the promised seed and tests Isaac's reliance on the Abrahamic covenant. Famine serves as a recurring thematic link across the generations in Genesis, deliberately connecting the experiences of Abraham, Isaac, and eventually Joseph. Yahweh appears to Isaac and commands him not to descend to Egypt, thereby tying the fulfillment of the promise to the specific geography of the Promised Land. The covenant made with Abraham is explicitly renewed with Isaac. It reiterates the culminating promise that all the nations of the earth would be blessed through his lineage. The text highlights that the promises, while unconditionally guaranteed by God's oath, carry accompanying covenantal responsibilities. The Lord explicitly links the ongoing blessing to Abraham's prior obedience, showing that faith within the promise plan organically generates obedience to divine instruction. In a moment of tension mirroring his father's failures, Isaac's fear-driven behavior jeopardizes both the purity of the promised seed and his witness to the surrounding nations. Rather than viewing this as a mere repetition of earlier stories, this pericope serves a distinct theological purpose. It emphasizes patriarchal success and divine preservation in a foreign context. Isaac's weak faith produces fear-driven deception that endangers the covenantal line. By lying about Rebekah's identity, he risks the lineage through which the messianic blessing must flow. The narrative employs deep irony as Abimelech, a Philistine king, acts with greater moral clarity regarding covenantal boundaries than the patriarch himself. This reinforces the biblical theological reality that the success of the promise plan rests entirely in the hands of the Almighty, not in the moral perfection of the patriarchs. The resolution of the narrative arc demonstrates the tangible fulfillment of God's blessing, culminating in cultic worship and peaceful coexistence with foreign neighbors. The broader literary structure unfolds chiastically. Isaac's famine-driven visit to Abimelech in Gerar frames the opening, while Abimelech's prosperity-driven return visit to Isaac in Beersheba frames the conclusion. At the center stand Isaac's conflicts over the wells and Yahweh's reaffirmation of the promise. Isaac reaps a hundredfold harvest in the land, visually and economically confirming God's presence. Yet this divine favor provokes Philistine envy. When God reiterates the promise at Beersheba, Isaac responds appropriately by building an altar. This act of public worship and true faith reverses the previous conflict. It leads to a formalized peace treaty with Abimelech and proves that the patriarchs were destined to be a blessing to the nations. The New Testament authors organically connect the historical realities of Isaac's life to the ultimate fulfillment of the promise plan in Christ and the Church without severing the historical root. The Apostle Paul explicitly draws upon the miraculous nature of Isaac's birth and his status as the sole inheritor of the covenant. In Romans chapter 9, he differentiates between the children of the flesh and the children of the promise, establishing that God's sovereign election operates independently of mere physical descent. The writer of Hebrews reflects on the patriarchal era, emphasizing Isaac's role as the recipient of the promises and commending his faith when he invoked future blessings on Jacob and Esau. This demonstrates a forward-looking trust in the divine plan. Paul in Galatians Chapter 3 identifies Christ as the ultimate singular seed to whom the Abrahamic promises were made, synthesizing the physical lineage running through Isaac with its ultimate cosmic culmination in the Messiah. Read through the lens of Promised Plan theology, Genesis 26 is not merely a transitional biographical sketch. It is a profound demonstration of the organic unity and invincibility of God's redemptive purposes. The text asserts that the concrete historical promises made to ethnic Israel, specifically regarding land, seed, and universal blessing, are not abrogated by generational transitions or human failure. While classical covenant theology can sometimes risk over-spiritualizing these patriarchal land promises, and dispensationalism might artificially compartmentalize them, a textually derived biblical theology recognizes that God's commitment to Isaac involves real, historical geography and physical descendants. These concrete realities do not compete with, but rather organically point forward to, their ultimate cosmic fulfillment in the Messianic era. The preservation of Isaac amidst famine and foreign hostility proves that the continuity of the promised plan is anchored solely in the unchanging character of God, who ensures that the blessing will ultimately reach all the families of the earth.